I never thought a simple winter getaway would end like this. When my friends first pitched the trip, it sounded perfect. A week away from city noise, tucked into the mountains of rural Canada. Just us, a cabin, and nothing but miles of pine forest, frozen lakes, and snow so deep you could drown in it. There were six of us. Me, my girlfriend Lily, our friend Tyler and his girlfriend Jenna, and then Matt and Lauren. The kind of couple that argued constantly, but somehow always stayed together. We'd all been friends since high school, and this trip felt like a reunion of sorts. One last adventure before life pulled us in different directions. The drive up was long, hours of winding roads, icy stretches, and the kind of wilderness where you could drive for 50 miles without seeing another soul. We stopped at a tiny gas station about an hour before reaching the cabin, one of those places that looked frozen in time. On the door, there was a missing person poster. Some hiker who hadn't come back a few weeks earlier. I didn't think much of it at the time. People got lost out here, right? I tried not to think about it, but for some reason, it kept popping back into my head. When we finally pulled up to the cabin, the sun was already setting, and the trees threw long shadows across the snow. The place was bigger than I expected. 2 floors, a wide front porch, and enough space inside that we could easily get lost in it. The logs were weathered and gray, the roof sagging a little under the weight of snow, but it felt solid, like it had been standing there for generations. The first night was normal. We unpacked, played some music, drank a little too much. Tyler tried to start a fire but almost smoked us out of the place, and Jenna wouldn't stop laughing about it. For a while, it felt like nothing could go wrong. The next morning, I realized just how far we were from everything. Back home, I was used to the constant hum of the city. Cars on the road, people shouting, music spilling from open windows. Here there was none of that, just an endless wall of trees and the sound of the wind pushing through them. It wasn't exactly creepy, but it drove home the fact that we were completely cut off. Lily and Jenna made coffee in the kitchen, while the rest of us bundled up to explore the property. The cabin was bigger than I thought, with a basement, an attic, and hallways that seemed to go on longer than they should have. It creaked and groaned as we moved around, like the wood itself was settling under our weight. Outside, we stuck close to the cabin at first, crunching through the snow along the outer walls. That's when Lauren spotted something, an emergency fire axe box mounted near the back door. The glass front had been smashed, and the axe itself was gone. Maybe it had been that way for years, or maybe just recently. There was no way to tell. Most of the group brushed it off, but the sight of it made me uneasy. Around noon, Matt suggested we hike down to the frozen lake. It wasn't far, maybe half a mile through the trees, and it gave us something to do. The snow made everything harder, but eventually we broke through the tree line and stood at the edge of the lake. The ice stretched out, smooth and white, as far as we could see. That's when Jenna noticed the tracks. Hoof prints. At least that's what they looked like at first, but they weren't right. The spacing was odd. Too far apart for a deer, and uneven, as though whatever made them had been limping or dragging one side of its body. Probably some moose or something, Tyler said with a grin, though his voice cracked just a little. He was clearly trying to spook us, but I could tell he didn't believe it himself. We followed the prints for a while, but they just stopped near the middle of the lake, fading into the wind-blown snow. No return trail, no sign of where the animal had gone. By the time we got back to the cabin, the sky was already darkening. The days were short up there, and night seemed to fall faster than it should have. We made dinner, played cards, tried to pretend the prince hadn't bothered us. But that night, as the others slept, I swore I heard something moving outside. Not the wind, not the trees, something else. I told myself it was just wildlife, maybe a deer rooting around for food. But when I finally drifted off to sleep, I dreamed of those tracks on the ice, hooves pressing into snow, and then vanishing into nothing. The following morning, the air felt sharper, colder somehow, like the temperature had dropped overnight. The cabin was warm enough with the fire going, but every time I looked out the frosted windows, the forest seemed darker than it had the day before. We decided to take another walk through the trees, partly to stretch our legs, partly to shake the cabin fever that was already setting in. It was Lauren who spotted it first. The deer lay half buried in the snow, its body twisted unnaturally like it had been slammed into the ground with incredible force. Its head was still attached, but barely. Hanging to one side, half torn away, the neck a ragged mess of frozen blood and sinew. None of us spoke at first. We just stood there staring at it. Finally, Tyler muttered, "Looks bad, but, I mean, mountain lions go for the neck, don't they? That's probably all it is." He said it quickly, like he wanted to believe it, like saying it out loud would make it true. But we all knew better. Mountain lions kill clean. They suffocate their prey, drag it away, feed on it. This wasn't that. The deer's body was untouched, left behind like it had been killed for no reason at all. "It doesn't make sense," Lauren whispered. Her voice was so low I almost didn't hear it. "Why leave it like this?" We told ourselves it was just nature, that things like this happened, but none of us really believed it. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing the deer's head lolling against its broken neck, its empty eyes staring through me. At one point, I swore I heard something outside, a heavy shifting sound, snow crunching under weight, slow and deliberate. I held my breath, waiting, but after a long stretch of silence, it was gone. That night, nobody slept well. Every creak of the cabin sounded louder, sharper. The walls groaned in the wind like they were straining against something. At one point, I woke to what I thought was the sound of branches scraping against the upstairs window, until I realized there were no trees that close. By morning, the mood had shifted completely. Nobody was laughing anymore. Even Tyler had stopped cracking jokes. Over breakfast, Lauren brought it up. The deer. She said we needed to leave. Now. Pack the cars and get off the mountain before we ended up like it. Matt argued with her, like always, but even he didn't sound convinced. He said it was too far to drive in the snowstorm, that we'd be safer waiting it out. Nobody really believed him. That afternoon, while Lily and Jenna tried to keep busy in the kitchen, I stepped out onto the porch with Matt to grab more firewood. That's when I noticed it. The prints. Not the strange hoof marks from before. These were different, larger. Deep gouges pressed into the snow, leading from the tree line right up to the edge of the porch, and then stopping, as if something had stood there, watching us. I followed them with my eyes back toward the forest. That's when I saw it. Just for a second, a figure moving between the trees. Too tall, too thin, gliding instead of walking, and then it was gone. I didn't say anything. Not right then. How could I? That night the sounds returned, heavier this time, pacing, circling the cabin. Every so often there was a scrape, like claws dragging across the wooden walls. We gathered in the living room, the fire dying low, every light in the cabin burning. Nobody wanted to admit we were scared, but the silence between us said enough. Then three sharp bangs on the back door. Not the wind, not the house settling. Deliberate, heavy, like something wanted us to know it was there. The banging at the back door didn't stop. Three slow, deliberate hits. Then silence. We all froze, staring at each other, waiting for someone else to move first. Nobody did. Finally, Matt grabbed the fire poker and crept toward the kitchen. I wanted to call him back, to tell him not to open the door, but the words caught in my throat. When he reached it, the handle moved. Not rattled, not jiggled, turned slowly, like someone testing it. Matt stumbled back, swearing under his breath, and we shoved the heavy kitchen table against the door. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the edge of the wood. The banging stopped. The night went quiet again. Too quiet. Then Lauren screamed. I turned toward the window and saw it. At the tree line, half hidden in the shadows, stood something tall and skeletal, its body stretched impossibly thin. Its skin clung tight to bone, gray and torn in places, as if it barely had flesh at all. From its skull jutted massive, twisted antlers, branching upward like blackened trees. Its face, if you could call it that, was a grotesque, elongated skull, empty socket staring straight at us. It didn't move at first. It just watched. And then, with a sudden, jerking lunge, it came forward. The back door shuddered under its weight. Once. Twice. On the third strike, the table we had pushed against it slid inches across the floor. The wood began to splinter. We stood frozen, too terrified to scream, as the thing drove its body against the door again and again. The hinges shrieked, the frame cracked, and then, with one final crash, the door gave way. The story ends before I can tell you what came through.